The reception area was cold and impersonal. The sound of keyboards and ringing phones created a monotonous rhythm. Brandon Carter, a black man with an imposing presence and a confident gaze, sat in the waiting room. He wore a pristine suit, with an organized folder resting on his lap. He discreetly observed the movement of the company while waiting for his interview for the senior manager position. The main office door opened with a firm push. Richard Wallace, the company director, stepped out with an arrogant posture, adjusting the buttons on his jacket. His sharp eyes scanned the reception area until they landed on Emily Brooks, the black secretary sitting behind the desk. "Who's next?" he asked, his tone indifferent. Emily, maintaining her professionalism, checked her schedule and nodded toward a candidate. "Mr. Brandon Carter." Richard followed the direction she indicated, and his gaze landed on Brandon. His eyes traveled from head to toe, evaluating him as if he were a product on a shelf. His expression of surprise was quickly replaced by one of barely concealed disdain. Brandon remained firm, showing no reaction. He was used to that kind of look. With a smirk, Richard stepped aside and gestured for him to follow. "Come on, Carter. I'm only interviewing you because Cooper recommended you. I really like that guy." Brandon calmly stood up and entered the office, noticing out of the corner of his eye that Emily lowered her head as if she already knew what was coming. This story will keep you hooked from start to finish. A man underestimated turns prejudice into justice in a way no one expected. Leave a like on this video, comment where you're watching from, and subscribe to the channel for more thrilling stories. Inside the office, Richard sat back casually, reclining in his leather chair. "All right, Carter. Tell me a little about yourself." "I have a degree in business administration from Harvard University and an MBA in business management from Stanford Graduate School of Business. Over the past few years, I have worked in major corporations, always holding leadership positions." Richard let out a stifled chuckle and raised an eyebrow. "Scholarship, huh?" he said in a suggestive tone. Brandon didn't respond. He simply kept his eyes fixed on the interviewer. Richard continued. "So, you worked in major corporations? Interesting. I imagine you got in through one of those diversity inclusion programs, right? These days, companies are hiring all sorts of people to improve their image. Even janitors are becoming managers." Brandon's blood boiled, but his face remained a mask of neutrality. "From what I see, your resume is solid, but here we value a strong corporate image. The company profile is more traditional." He paused, leaning slightly forward. His voice dropped a tone, as if he were sharing a secret. "Understand, it's nothing personal, but high-end clients prefer to deal with people they can trust. The corporate world is ruthless, Carter. Sometimes the wrong impression can drive investors away. You get what I'm saying, right?" Brandon clasped his fingers together on the table. He waited a moment and then spoke calmly. "I'm trying to understand, Mr. Wallace. Are you saying my skin color affects the company's credibility?" Richard let out a nasal laugh and leaned back in his chair. "No need to take it that way. But let's be realistic. People prefer dealing with those who look like them. A black executive? Don't you think that might make clients uncomfortable? They might think the company is changing its standards." Brandon didn't respond immediately. He simply pulled a small recorder from his suit pocket and pressed play. Richard's words echoed clearly from the tiny device. Richard's eyes widened, his arrogant expression crumbling. What are you doing?" Brandon reached into his pocket and placed a golden badge on the table. "Investigator Brandon Carter, FBI. You're under arrest for racial discrimination, as outlined in Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Richard turned pale, searching for words, but the office door swung open before he could react. 2 officers entered, ready to take him away. Brandon stood up and adjusted his suit. Before leaving, he looked at Richard and said, "Now tell me, Mr. Wallace, who's the one with a tarnished image now?" As soon as Richard was handcuffed, a murmur spread throughout the company. Emily covered her mouth, incredulous. Jake Carter, Brandon's son and an analyst at the company, watched everything in silence. He had never imagined that his father was behind this. Richard, in a last act of desperation, tried to justify himself. "This is absurd. I have influential contacts. You don't know who you're dealing with." Brandon, calm, simply smirked. This time your power won't save you. Jake approached his father, confusion written all over his face. Dad, what was that? You set all this up? Brandon met his gaze with firmness, but also with tenderness. Yes, son. I got tired of watching you suffer in silence. I got tired of seeing people like Emily being humiliated. If no one had the courage to act, then I would take that responsibility. Jake took a deep breath, trying to process it. In that moment, he saw his father not just as a man, but as a true role model. I just wanted to grow here through my work, Dad. I just wanted respect. Brandon placed a hand on his son's shoulder. And now you will. And not just you, but everyone who comes after you. The world doesn't change unless someone has the courage to stand up to what's wrong. Emily, with tears in her eyes, gathered the courage to speak. Mr. Carter, I thank you. For all of us. Working here has always been a challenge. Every day felt like walking through a minefield. The disguised jokes, the looks of contempt, the whispers in the hallways. I knew that to some I would never be more than the black secretary. She took a deep breath before continuing. There were times I thought about quitting, but I needed this job. I kept quiet when Richard ignored me in meetings, when he referred to me in a derogatory way, when he devalued my work. And today, seeing this happen, seeing justice being served, it means more than words can describe. People were moved and a wave of stories began to emerge. One of the employees, a young intern, raised his hand and spoke with a shaky voice. I was always treated like I was here as a favor. I've lost count of how many times I was told I only got this job because of diversity quotas, and that I should be grateful, even when I was the one working the hardest in the department. An older woman who worked in the accounting department took a deep breath before speaking. For years, I was passed over for promotions I knew I deserved. They always gave the position to someone with less experience, less time at the company, but with lighter skin. Today, I see that it wasn't just my imagination. Emily nodded, tears in her eyes. This place always made us feel invisible. But today, I feel like we've been seen. Thank you, Mr. Carter. The employees looked at each other, realizing they were not alone, and the truth was being spoken without fear. Richard, still in the room, watched as respect and admiration for Brandon grew around him. And there, handcuffed, he understood that he had never truly had power. His prejudice had destroyed him. The biggest lesson of that day was clear. Justice has no color, and respect is not a privilege. It's a right. Brandon walked out of the company with Jake by his side, knowing that they had won not just a battle, but had changed the course of many lives. What an incredible twist. Brandon proved that justice always finds its way and that no one is above it. This story reminds us that courage and dignity can transform realities. What did you think of this twist? Leave your comment below. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel Stories for You for more thrilling narratives like this one. See you next time.